Hello and welcome back to Public Speaking and Presentations. Again, my name is Paul Kim. Thank you for joining us here for part 3 of this series. Today, in this video, I would like to talk a lot about how we deliver our presentation. In part 1 and 2, we talked about the language and structure, but here let's put it together and make sure that we have the right way in order to give our message the most effectively. You see, I'm going to talk about anxiety because most of us fear speaking in public. Then we'll follow up with ways to make our speech or presentation much more interesting by having a variety in the speed or using pauses. And finally, we'll talk about the benefits of good body language and how to avoid the negatives of bad body language. So moving forward, now when you're asked to speak in front of your peers or in front of strangers, most of us get really tense. That's because actually it's been proven that people actually fear speaking in public more than they fear the thing of death. So why do we fear speaking in public? Well, for one, when we're in front of an audience, we think the audience is judging every little thing about us, our flaws, the way we talk, and if we make a mistake, we think they're thinking, oh, that person doesn't know what they're talking about. And actually, for some speakers, this fear actually translates into actual physical motion. They tremble uncontrollably, they sweat profusely, and this can happen to even the best speakers. And what I want to do is really give the message that we're not going to eliminate this anxiety. The best thing to do is to manage it. Because to have a little bit of speaking anxiety actually is a benefit. It keeps you alert, it keeps you focused. So let's talk a little bit about some of the tips that I have in order to manage our speaking anxiety. The first is to view your presentation or speech as a conversation, except you're the one doing the first part of the conversation. And the audience is your friend, and you're waiting for them to respond to you. And what this does is it can help you take the focus of being actually a public speaker, but instead you're just having a conversation. The second tip I have is memorize a few lines. And I know some of you are saying, wait a minute, in video 1 you said don't memorize. I did. I said don't memorize the entire speech or presentation. The benefit here is that when we first get on stage, that is when we're the most anxious, the most nervous. And if you've memorized the first couple of lines, you're able to start with a very positive beginning. Compare that to if you go on stage and right away you start making mistakes, it makes your uphill battle to becoming more comfortable when you speak. And the last tip I have for managing your speaking anxiety is to avoid caffeine. I know, I love coffee as much as anyone, but the problem with caffeine or coffee or any caffeinated beverage is it dries your mouth out. And also, caffeine can actually increase your anxiety because for most of us it increases our heart rate. With that said, so we need to avoid caffeinated beverages like coffee, even tea, soda, and especially energy drinks. Now that we talked about managing our stage fright, managing our nervousness, let's talk about ways to add interest to the way we deliver our words to our audience. And the first thing I want to address is the speed of our speech. Let's first talk about some myths. The first thing I want to say is that a lot of people think that speaking really quickly makes people think I'm proficient. And that's not true. Actually, speaking really quickly will increase the probability that you're going to make a mistake, and then that's going to increase the probability that you're going to be nervous. So, if you change the speed of how you speak, you're going to add interest to the audience, for the audience. For example, when something's really exciting, you can talk really fast. On the other hand, if you want to add some seriousness, you want to add some reflection of your message, slow down the pace of your speech. Let's move on to the next speaking variety tip I have, and that is the use of pauses. And for a lot of people, they believe this myth that if I'm silent when I talk, people think I'm unprepared. That is not true. The truth is that silence is a real powerful communication tool. And if you use pauses to your advantage, you're going to help keep the audience engaged in your actual message. For instance, if you want to add some importance to your message, pause. If you ask a question to the audience, pause. For example, so who here fears speaking in public? Pause. And lastly, pause before the next section or the next slide in your presentation. This brings us to the last part of today's video, and that's talking about body language. And we all do body language naturally. So we use it to communicate up to 70% of our message. And some of the body language we use is eye contact, gestures with our hands and our arms, our posture, and the way we stand. I'm really going to concentrate today in terms of eye contact and movement. Now, eye contact really helps you connect with the audience. And bad eye contact really actually removes that connection. Now, one thing is it's very natural. We do it every day with our friends, with our family, our coworkers. But for some reason, when we get on stage, we forget all of that. Why? Why don't we have good eye contact? Well, for some of us, it's our personality. We're shy. We are very uncomfortable looking at other people directly in the eye. And for others of us, if you don't prepare enough, if you're not confident, you're gonna lack that eye contact. So here are some tips regarding good eye contact. What I recommend is that whether or not you're in a small boardroom of 10 people or a large auditorium, divide the room into 3 sections, A, B, and C. Now, if it's a large room, you're going to have A2, B2, C2. And your goal is to make everyone think you looked at them in the eyes. If it's an auditorium of 200 people, that's going to be nearly impossible. But what you're going to do is you're going to look for a little bit longer period than just a glance in each section throughout your speech or presentation. So I'm looking here, I'm delivering a message. The next message, I'll look at another section. And so you're going to make everyone feel as if you looked at them in the eye. One note about eye contact is don't look at someone too long, as you will make them feel uncomfortable. That brings us to the last step, and that is in terms of body language when we're delivering our speech or presentation. Now, if you move with purpose, you really show the audience that you're comfortable, that you're confident. However, if you move too quickly from one side to the other without any purpose, you're really taken away from your message. You're becoming distracting. So, on the other hand, if you just stay in one spot, like a statue, you make the audience comfortable, you make yourself uncomfortable. Of course, if you're behind a podium, it's much different. You're not going to walk around the stage, but you will still try to move freely in terms of your upper body and your eye contact. So I have some tips. Similar to eye contact, divide your stage into 3 parts, A, B, and C. And again, like eye contact, every time your message changes or you have something different to say, go to a different section. And perhaps I'm going to ask a question to this part of the audience, and perhaps I'm going to deliver the conclusion to this part. So again, divide your stage and use that stage to your advantage. Now, when we talk about body language, we have to talk about the last part, and that is body language that actually takes away from your message. We call these mannerisms. And mannerisms are these strange little movements that really distract from your message. The thing about mannerisms is that they're usually caused because we're nervous. And we talked about stage fright. But the worst thing about mannerisms is most people don't know they have them. They're little nervous things that they do, and they don't even know they're doing them. So let's look at some of the common mannerisms. There's the rocking back and forth or swaying. And some people will, if they're behind a podium, they'll just grip it and they'll white knuckle it. Or some people, they don't know, their face has no emotion or they frown. And the worst one I've seen is the person who thinks they're making eye contact, but instead they're more like a fan in the summer, just turning side to side. So let me give you the last part of today's message, and that is eliminating these mannerisms. The first step is really easy. Practice, practice, practice. A lot of people, they're so busy at work, they write a script or an outline, then they get in front of their audience and they just try to deliver the speech. And they wonder, why wasn't that successful? Because you need to practice. You need to make that time. More importantly, put one of your friends, your peers, in the seat in front of you to be the audience, to give you very open, very honest feedback of what you need to improve. Next, almost all of us, I would say, have some sort of video recording device, probably a phone. Record yourself when you practice and when you deliver the actual presentation or speech. And use this evaluation form that I'll provide for you to honestly give yourself feedback. Lastly, volunteer to be a speaker more often. If your boss says, who would like to deliver this presentation, be the first one to raise your hand. The only way you can reduce mannerisms, overcome your stage fright, and become a better speaker is to do it more often. This concludes our last video. I again truly appreciate you spending time to watch me and my bad jokes and bad motions to become a better speaker. For our class, I would like you to spend some time to watch 3 short presentations or speeches. You can use something like TED Talks or any other type of media. Make sure it's no longer than 10 minutes, maybe 8, 12 minutes. I want you to try to find one really good speech or presentation, one okay speech or presentation, and one really, really bad one. Also use the evaluation form I gave you. Now, here's the real difficult part for you, and that's your homework to write a speech or presentation. You can do a PowerPoint presentation like I did, or you can do a formal speech as if you were giving the opening statements at a formal dinner. But please limit it to about 300 to 350 words. The topic would be on anything you want to talk about that is of interest. Practice it, practice it, practice it, and I look forward to seeing you in class. Thank you for your time.